Hello students. So in the module number 5, till now we have discussed on ceramic materials, their properties, processing methods and their application, and the mechanism of failures, and the polymers are in general plastics, their properties, processing methods, application and their failuring methods, and the RLA, that is a residual life assessment, and what are the techniques normally we use to assess the residual life assessment. So the last part in the module number 5 is other than these, okay, there is a class of advanced materials which stands unique for a particular application. So those are categorized into other materials, or when you go into those other material, so we'll talk about the materials which are generally used for thermal application or optical properties application, or a smart materials, or a shape memory alloys. Okay, so in that one, what are the properties of those materials, and what are the classification in that, in those materials, and what are the applications. So when we see other classifications of material, in general, the various materials, okay, other than the general classification of the material, like metals, or a non-metals, or a alloys, or a ceramic material, or a composite material. So till now we have discussed all the categories in detail. Okay, what are the properties, what are the processing methods, applications, and all. So in that one, the first category in the other material, so we'll consider for a thermal material. So in a general thing, so we find many situations where these thermal properties of materials are important for a particular application. Say for example, when we are going to eat something, okay, any liquid or any solid, or when we are going to use the utensils for a cooking purpose, or the materials which we are going to use it at a high temperature, say in a nuclear applications, or maybe in a conditions where the temperatures keeps on fluctuating. Okay, it goes to minus degree also, or it comes to the normal temperature, or it may rise up to the few 60 or 50 degrees Celsius and all. So what are the properties we need to consider when it comes to the thermal materials? Okay, so we find a variety of application which demands, okay, these properties. So in a general thing, whenever we look for a thermal material, okay, so here there are few properties which we are going to keep in mind, or we are going to give an importance to those things, like a thermal conductivity, heat capacity, thermal expansion, melting point, and thermal shock resistance. So these are the general property. Even whenever we are going to consider a general material for a general application, okay, so we are going to have all these property, but we are not going to concentrate on those things until we are going to choose that material for a particular thermal application. Okay, say for example, so if you are going to use a material, okay, so to conduct a heat from one point to the other point, or if you are going to use a material in order to absorb the heat, excess heat, or in order to liberate the excess heat, or in order to store the heat, like we call it as a phase change materials. Okay, or thermal expansion. Say for example, when we are going to heat a particular material, when the temperature rises, it expands, and when the temperature is maintained below that point, it contracts. Okay, so means on heating it get expanded, so on cooling it gets contracted. Okay, or a melting point. Say for example, if you're going to use a particular material for a particular application in a stated temperature, so if the melting point of that material comes under that category, so there is no point of using that material in that condition. Okay, so we need to check for that one. Or else, if a process demands a high temperature operating method, okay, at that point we need to consider what is the melting point of that object or a material. And one very important is thermal shock resistance. Thermal shock resistance is a material should withstand the fluctuation in the temperature. Say for example, we say shock absorber, okay, in a vehicle. So where it absorbs the mechanical deformation, there will be a fluctuation. There will be a alternate tensile and a compression. In the same way, when we talk about a thermal shock resistance, so it is a fluctuation in the temperature. So in a mechanical shock absorber, it is a fluctuation in the deformation, and here it's a fluctuation in the temperature. Means we find a variety of application, so where we are going to consider one or the other properties, okay, which plays an important role when it comes to the application. Okay, so if you take the first one, that is a thermal conductivity. So thermal conductivity is a property, okay, by virtue of it, it transfer heat from higher temperature to the lower temperature. So whenever we are going to have a two solid bodies, or if you take a copper wire, if you are going to heat at a one end, the heat is transferred from one end to the other end by conduction. Okay, so that is what is thermal conductivity. It means it can conduct or it can transfer the heat from one end to the other end. Okay, so in other words, we can say it's a temperature normally. Okay, so used or a difference in the temperature which exists between two materials to transfer the heat from a body which is at a high temperature to the low temperature. So normally we say that one with the joule per meter per degree Kelvin or a degree Celsius. Okay, so amount of heat transferred per unit area to rise or per degree Celsius or Kelvin. So the materials with a outstanding thermal conductivity, normal, the materials we use are a silver, copper, gold, aluminium, nickel, steel. Okay, so we have a many also, but when we consider them for a application which requires a thermal conductivity, so these are the materials which come in a higher priority. Okay, so higher thermal conductivities are required in heat exchangers. So where normally we use it to exchange the heat, and silver is expensive, copper is extensively used wherever heat transfer is desirable. Okay, say whenever it comes to the application, okay, so where we need to transfer the heat, okay, so there we can go with the copper. Okay, so again price is a key point where we need to consider it. Okay, so it is not something like a silver is outstanding, so we can go for that one for a normal use also. So depending upon the application and depending upon the cost incurred, so we can go for the different materials also. So the next one is a heat capacity, or we can call that one as a specific heat also. Okay, so it is a property of a material by virtue of it can absorb. Okay, it can absorb to increase the temperature through 1 degree Celsius. Okay, so amount of heat absorbed to increase 1 degree Celsius or 1 degree Kelvin of that material is called as a heat capacity. Okay, or you can say the amount of heat supplied to increase the temperature of that material through 1 degree Kelvin is nothing but a specific heat. Okay, so normally the unit of this one is joules per mole Kelvin. Okay, or you can say joules per kg Kelvin also. Okay, so it depends on the unit which we use normally to specify the mass of a substance or a material. Okay, so whenever we look for this one, okay, so the general water is a king when it comes to the heat capacity. Means so it takes up a lot of heat to increase the temperature also, and it takes a lot, it liberates a lot of heat to decrease the temperature also. Okay, so apart from that one, alcohol, wood, aluminium, clay, copper, lead, silver, steel, and follow in the decreasing order. Okay, so even the metal with the aluminium as a highest heat capacity. Okay, so only normally we use aluminium foils to what you call pack the food materials. Okay, so whenever we order something, okay, aluminum foil is wrapped around the food substances. So in order to what you call minimize the what you call heat loss, or it keeps that food hot. Okay, so even when it comes to the water also, a pot of water on a stove might require 15 minutes to heat it from room temperature to the boiling temperature. So whereas equal mass of the steel on the same flame would rise through the same temperature only in 2 minutes. Means it won't require that much of heat to increase the temperature. Means the specific heat of a steel is lesser than water. Okay, even for a silver, the time taken would be less than a minute, making it a material with a even less heat capacity. Okay, the one which is having a good thermal conductivity, okay, so can have a specific heat a bit lower. So if you observe a water, okay, which is much slower to warm in a hot sun and slower to cool at a night. Okay, so means it takes a lot of time, or a lot, it absorbs lot of heat to increase the temperature through 1 degree Celsius also, and in the same time it takes it liberates a lot of heat in order to decrease the temperature through 1 degree also. So that's an advantage to store the heat. Okay, so sand is having a low heat capacity. Okay, so it heats up very quickly also, and it liberates the heat very quickly auto. Means it warms up in the morning quickly, and it gets cooled at a night very quickly also, so affecting the local climate. So deserts are said to be very hot during the day and very cold during the night. So that is because of the specific heat of the sand. Okay, so which requires a minimum heat to increase the temperature through 1 degree. Okay, and a minimum heat to be liberated to decrease the temperature to the 1 degree. Okay, so normally these things are used even in the electronic packaging. Okay, so where we are going to use a heat sink or a heat source to absorb a heat, or to extract the heat from a hot bodies. Okay, say for example PCBs and all. So there this property, there is a heat capacity or a specific heat is generally employed. Okay, means so to absorb the heat, there are a few what you call applications where we require. Say for example, a phase change material normally we use for storing this solar energy. Okay, so there we need a high heat capacity. Means it has to absorb a maximum amount of heat, and it has to store in that one. Okay, and whenever it is required again, it is a slow process. It liberates the heat in a slow manner. Okay, so there is no what you call a material which is having a absorption at a greater extent and liberation at a slower extent. No, so this heat capacity will be what you call equal in both absorbing the heat as well as liberating the heat. And we find plenty of application, okay, even in electronic packaging or in a computer applications. So where we are going to use this miniaturization of these electronic or a computer application. So this property, the materials which normally we use for those applications, so this property plays an important role. So where we need to extract the heat, okay, so it should be readily extracted and given out to the atmosphere. Okay, so where it requires like a, it has to absorb a larger heat and it has to liberate the same heat at a same rate. Okay, so that is what a heat capacity. So next one will be thermal expansion. Okay, thermal expansion. So as already said, expansion. So once we are going to heat that material, it is going to get expanded. Okay, so upon heating it gets expanded. Even so, whenever we are going to use these material for any particular application, so the thermal expansion, so sometimes we deliberately we are going to impose this or we expect this property to be there in that material, and sometimes this is a one which leads to the malfunctioning of the uh, component also. Okay, so it is the amount of expansion in a unit length of a solid material due to temperature rise through 1 degree Kelvin or a Celsius. Okay, so among the materials, so which have a low coefficient of thermal expansion are a carbon, silica, invar, okay, so manganese, tungsten, nickel in that order. Okay, so invar especially a special alloy, so invented by CE Gallium, okay, so of France in 1896, okay, which won even the Nobel Prize also, has a very low, near to the zero coefficient of thermal expansion between room temperature and 230 degree Celsius. Okay. So even materials showing a low expansion properties are employed in application that requires a dimension stability. So that is what I said. So if you are going to have a component whose thermal expansion is bit higher, so whenever it is subjected, okay, or whenever it is encountered for a temperature which is a little bit higher than operating temperature, so there may be chances like it may get expanded. Okay, so the dimension stability, okay, so even the working procedure or the functionality of that one may altered due to these change in the dimensions. Okay, so the components normally used to measure the systems. Okay, so vessels are a piping for a storage. So components in a mechanical clocks, watches, okay, so etc. are comparison metals with a higher coefficient of thermal expansion, like a tin, aluminium, lead, zinc, okay, cadmium and all. So the best example for these thermal expansion where it makes a difference, okay, so is the bridges. Normally the bridges done with the steel structures, okay, so where there will be a proper gap is produced, okay, or it is intentionally provided in order to accommodate this thermal expansion. So even in the railway tracks, okay, so we might have seen, okay, in the railway tracks, so where there will be a little bit gap between the two tracks, okay, so which are maintained. So whenever it comes to the summer, okay, so due to the eating up of these tracks, so there will be a expansion. So due to that one, so if you are not going to provide this gap, sufficient gap, there may be a buckling of these railway tracks. Okay, so which leads to the what you call accident of these, or a derailing of the railway wheels, which may lead to the catastrophic failure or accidents. Okay, so that's the best example for these thermal expansion. Okay, so wherever even it comes to the railway bridges, one end of that one will be provided with the rollers. Okay, so where we can accommodate this thermal expansion, means a sufficient gap is provided by calculating the thermal expansion. Okay, so using the formulas. Okay, so where we can accommodate this thermal expansion. So next property will be the melting point. Okay, so melting point normally, so where the material changes its phase from a solid to the liquid. So if the melting point of that temperature falls in the operating temperature, okay, so the material will not be in a position to be in a solid state. It will change to the liquid state where the viscosity will be bit lower and it will be flowing anywhere, right? So again, so the dimension of that one, even the functionality of those materials will be changing with respect to that one. Okay. So therefore, whenever we are going to choose a material for a particular application, so one has to ensure that the melting point of that one will be little bit higher than the operating temperature. Okay. So the melting point again depends on the bonding. Okay, so either the metallic bonding, covalent or ionic bonding, or a molecular bonding. Okay, so which existing in that material. Say for example, if you're going to use a plastics or a polymers, so they are having a molecular bonding. Okay, so which they are least in the strength, and they are going to have a lower melting point compared to the metallic bonds, and the ceramics which exhibits a covalent bond or a strong bonds. Okay, so they are going to withstand a high temperature, so therefore the melting point of those materials will be little bit higher again. So when we take these metals or ceramics or polymers, ceramic stands at the first place to withstand the high temperature, and they are having a melting point which is many times greater than these metals and polymers. So only the ceramics are used as a refractory materials, okay, which can withstand a high temperature. So we can say here diamond with a strong covalent bond has a very high melting point, nearly 4500 degree Celsius also. Okay, so like that, if you compare here, okay, so carbon will be having a 3600, tungsten 3410, okay, to the least as a tin, which is having a 232 degree Celsius. Okay, so means so when an application requires a high temperature, so at that time, so one has to consider this property as a key feature, okay, while selecting that material for particular application. So the last one in the thermal properties is a thermal shock resistance. Okay, thermal shock resistance, as I said, the fluctuation, okay, fluctuation or a sudden decrease or a sudden increase in the temperature, so leads to the change in the properties of a material. Okay, like a severe temperature changes caused by either a change in the environment or due to internal heat generation. Okay, so generally ductile materials such as aluminum, copper, mild steel are more thermally shock resistant than the brittle material. So where they can undergo the deformation and they can again come back to their original dimensions. Okay, or they can restore the property. Okay, by dissipating whatever the heat which they have absorbed. Okay, so that is what normally we talk about the thermal shock resistance. So these are the main important five properties, okay, of materials which normally we select for a thermal application. Okay, so one has to consider these property depending upon their application. Okay, so when the application demands, so on that one, so one has to analyze these property for a particular application. So moving on with that one, the next class of material will be like optical materials. Normally, we use materials for like a transparent or a opaque, okay, or absorption of a light or a deflection of a light. Okay, so or absorption of few categories or a range of radiations. Okay, so those materials we are going to call it as a optical materials. Okay, so in these again, so we have a few property like a refraction or a reflection, absorbability, okay, or a color or a luminescence or a photoconductivity. So we have few properties which normally make these materials to stand unique when it comes to the application in the category of optical materials. Okay, So even basically the optical behavior of a solid material is a function of its interaction with the electromagnetic radiation within the visible range of the spectrum. Okay. So important in that one, so is the first one, refraction. So when a beam of light loses energy and changes its direction when it passes through a solid medium, it is termed as a refraction. So it changes its direction, or it gets deflected from a normal path. So refractive index of a material is the ratio of velocity of light in a vacuum to the velocity of light passing through that particular material. So here the velocity through the vacuum is taken as a standard, okay, and it is compared with the velocity of that material through the, or a light through that material. So diamond is having a high refractive index, that is equal to n is equal to 2.4, and therefore sparkle due to multiple internal reflection. So metals absorb incident light but do not refract light at all. Okay, so whenever you need a refractive index and all, so one can go through or one can consider the materials which are having a higher refractive index than these materials. So when you consider these metals, okay, so they are not going to absorb, okay, even uh, they absorb rather than refracting the light in a different way. Okay. So next one will be reflectivity. So reflectivity is the property of a reflecting light or radiation as measured independently of the thickness of the material. So higher the index of refraction of a solid, so greater is the reflectivity. Means the materials which are having a higher index of refraction, okay, so will be showing the greater in the reflectivity. Okay, so reflectivity of a light radiation also depends on the wavelength of the incident light, which changes from material to material. For example, so reflectivity of a copper is 98%. So when the wavelength of the incident light is 7500 angstrom, whereas it drops to 58% when the wavelength is 4500 angstrom. Means the reflectivity of a light radiation solely depends on the wavelength of the incident light. So on the other hand, aluminum reflectivity increases with decreasing the wavelength of the incident light. Okay, so silver exhibits the best reflectivity, followed by copper, aluminum, and steel. So the next property will be absorbability. Absorbability. So when the light radiation is incident on a material surface, it might get reflected or absorbed or transmitted to varying extents during depending upon the material. So here the absorbability is, so the part of the light is absorbed. Okay, the decimal fraction that is transmitted is termed as a transmittance. The decimal fraction reflected is called as a reflectance, and the decimal fraction which is absorbed is called as a absorptivity. Okay, so in the same way, it can be written as T plus R plus A is equal to 1. That is a transmittance, reflectance, and absorptivity will be summation of those things will be equal to 1. So like for example, concrete so doesn't transmit any light, hardly reflects, and therefore absorbs about 90%. So A is equal to 0.9 of the incident light. So fire bricks 0.7. So oxidized steel 0.7. Okay. So have a reasonably higher absorbability, which metals like polished steels, aluminum sheet, and polished copper so display poor absorbability since they reflect heavily. So whenever we are going to have uh, a polished surfaces, so polished surfaces reflects a light rather than absorbing that one. Okay, so we can even fill it in the a few glasses also. Okay, so where it is used particularly to absorb, say for example like a solar application, so where it needs a more absorbability rather than having the reflectivity. Okay, so next one will be color. So transparent material appear colored as a result of specific wavelength of a incident light. Okay, so whenever a specific a light of a specific wavelength, when it is what you call radiated with that, so the color of that material will change. Okay, so the color of the surface material perceived therefore is a result of combination of a wavelengths that are transmitted. So if absorption is uniform for all visible light, the material appear colorless, okay, as found in a water or some high purity agent. So even the color of those materials can be changed with the help of the light which is radiated by controlling different wavelengths in that. Okay. So the next property will be luminescence. So luminescence is a phenomenon exhibited by some materials which are capable of absorbing energy and then emitting visible light. So in this process, due to input energy, the electrons of a luminescent materials are promoted to the conduction band from the valence band. Okay, and then they fall back into the lower band by what you call emitting that whatever the amount of energy which they had absorbed to jump into the what you call from valence to the conduction band. Okay, so if the emission take place within a 10 power of minus 8 second, so after excitation the luminescence is called as a fluorescence. Okay, and if the emission take place longer than, that is a more than 10 power of minus 8 second, then it is referred as a phosphorescence. Okay, so luminescence is produced by materials called phosphors, so which absorbs high energy short uh, wave radiations and emit at the same time lower energy, so longer wavelength light radiation. Okay, so these luminescence are important factors. So for application like a fluorescent lamps consisting of a glass housing coated on a inside with the specially prepared tungstates or a silicates. The picture of a television screen or a CRT, okay, in the production of luminescence, detection of X-rays, gamma rays. Okay, number of materials can be made act as a luminescence, example like a sulfides, oxides, okay, tungstates, and a few organic materials by adding impurities called activators. There are a few applications where we require those things. Okay, even maybe to detect the defects in the material. Okay, so and even when it comes to the what you call detection of few surface cracks and all. Okay, so there we can use these luminescence principle to find the defects. Okay, so the next will be photoconductivity. So photoconductivity is a property of a material, so where its conductivity is increased when light energy falls on its surface. Okay, so the conductivity of a heat. Okay, and a few applications where it requires is a photographic light meters uses a principle of photoconductivity. So cadmium sulfide, which is a photoconducting, is commonly used as a material in the light meters. So solar cells are also an application of a photoconductivity. Okay, sunlight may be directly converted into electrical energy in a solar cells, the working of a photovoltaic cells. Okay, so in a LEDs, which has a revolutionized the bulb industry, electrical energy is converted into light energy. Okay, so means each property. Okay, so if it is used for a particular application, okay, so it leads to a conversion of those energy efficiently. Okay, so next will be the last one in the optical will be laser. Okay, so laser light amplification by stimulated emission of a radiation. Okay, so beams are produced in lasers by stimulated electron transition, so which are used for many purpose. Okay, so even for recreation purpose, even for cutting of the material purpose where the energy is more, so we can use for laser cladding also. Okay, so likewise we can go for various methods or various applications. Okay, so even using the laser beams. Okay, so that's about the optical properties. Okay, so optical properties of a particular material which normally we go for different things. So the next one will be fiber optic materials. Okay, so fiber optic materials, the field of communication has been revolutionized by the arrival of these optical fibers. Okay, so we might have heard in a recent ways. Okay, so where fiber opticals are led from uh, Bombay to the Lakshadweep. Okay, so where the speed of the internet and the connectivity, okay, so everything will be increased. Means the revolutionized materials, okay, leads to the development of the country. Okay, even along with these things. Okay. So you may imagine one optical fiber, okay, weighing less than 100 grams, which can transmit 12,000 telephone calls simultaneously. Whereas for an equivalent data transmission, so over 15 tons of copper would be needed. Okay, so the olden days where we used to have a normal copper wires to transmit these, okay, are replaced with the optical fibers, so which are weighing less. Even the diameters of the materials are a bit less. Okay, so the transmission and the purity in that one, okay, so is increased in that. So optical fibers are generally as thin as hair, like about 1.25, okay, so diameter, are primarily made of a pure silica, that is SiO2 glass. Okay, an optical fiber based data transmission system contains the following basic materials. Okay, so one is a transmitter, first which converts the electrical energy into the light signals, okay, which is called as encoding. Then the optical fibers transmit these light signals, and at the end will be having a photodiode converts back these light energy into the electric energy, so which is called as a decoding. Okay, so the message you want to transmit, okay, so it will be first coded, okay, and it is transferred from converted from electrical to light signals. Then once it is received, then it is again converted back to the electrical. So how that process carries, you can see it in the general way. So where we are going to have an encoder, so which converts, okay, so electrical into the light, then a repeater, okay, so where we are going to have a connectivity here through the fiber optic cables. Then we are going to have an optical electrical converter, that is a decoder. So then we are going to get a output signal. Means so when we see an optical fiber, okay, so it looks like this, an optical fiber which will be at the center, so which is cladded with the two layers. Okay, so one is a cladding layer and one is a coating layer in order to prevent that one from the effect of surrounding. Okay, so or damage. Okay, so damaging to that one will be losing of the data. Okay, so the art of the communication system is the optical fiber which transmits from encoder to the decoder. Okay. So optical fibers must carry a light pulses over a long distance without significant losses in the signals, okay, and pulse distortion. So when you see here, a light signal passes through the a core optic fibers. Okay, the immediate surrounding will be cladding constraints the light rays to travel within the core. Means so if the light rays are deviated from this one, or if there is a material which absorbs the light energy, also again there will be a loss in the signals. Okay, or the amount which we are going to transmit from one end to the other end, there will be a loss and there will be distortion in the signals, so which leads to the there is a distortion in the even in the communication also. Okay, so the core from damage and may result from abrasion and external pressure, so it is transmitted through 1,000 kilometers. So at that time, so care should be taken in order to avoid any damage to the optical fiber. Okay, so means if for a particular application there are a particular materials, so which are designed, okay, so the properties are tailored to increase the efficiency in that process itself. Okay, so one can choose wisely, so depending upon the application of the materials. Okay, so thank you.